doing some grip art today for you guys. So the first thing you gotta know is if you're ever recording grip art, make sure that your camera is far enough that you don't spray paint your camera. But the art that I'm gonna be doing is Shanks from One Piece. So the first thing that I had to do is first cut out each color out of each printout and label each color and the order that I'm gonna be doing each spray paint in. So number 1 is the crimson, 2 is white, 3 is burnt. I also marked the center of each piece of paper so that way it's easier to know where to put it on the grip tape. So you can see that I made the scar on his right, I cut that out in this one. And the next one I cut his eyes out, then his shadows in this one, and just cutting out one color out of a time and making stencils out of them. So after I did that, then I took my grip tape, I covered the sides of the grip to the border of the picture. So I covered the border of this art. So this is where all the paint is going to be inside. And I took a screenshot of this art from my computer. So I put these in a plastic because it just helps preserve the paper so it doesn't get damaged. If you ever like drink something or whatever next to the paper or whatever, then you don't have to worry about damaging them. What I got here is some paint, different colors, each shade of color that I need for the skin, for the shadow, for the scar, for the red hair. And then I got here's some hex nuts to put down on the grip tape, some gloves for the art so you don't dirty your fingers, a mask if you're working indoors, and some more screws and bolts to hold down the papers on the edges. Mark the center of the grip so that way when I'm lining up the grip art I could also line up this piece of paper with it. And also I had some paper clips over here. So I have some paper clips that I put on the edge so that way I could hold the piece of paper or the stencil onto the grip tape. So the first color that I'm going to work with is the background or the skin tone, because once you put the skin tone then you're able to build on top of that and you're able to put all the extra features like the eyes, the scar, whatever. So that's the first part. But first I gotta put the bolts and nuts onto the edges so that way the paper doesn't fly up when I'm spraying. What I'm going to start off with is the skin tone. Because like I said before, you're going to be doing this in layers. So this is the skin tone that I was using. I labeled this Burnt Sienna 7 background skin. Make sure you shake the can so all the paint inside isn't dry. Spray it to the side a little bit. That. The wind's a little high, so it's kind of hard to do, but that's perfect. That's the first step. Now what we're gonna do is I have to take off this piece right over here because we don't need this piece. I forgot to put on gloves. Nice. It's already dirty my fingers. So let me take off this top piece. This was just for a background. So I'm gonna keep the rest. And as you guys could probably not, you probably can't see it, but over here, when you look at the top of the grip, you can see a little line right over here. That's the center of the grip tape, and that's where I want all my stencils to be lined up with. But then after I line up, I also wanted the piece of paper to line up with the edge of the grip so that I know it is leveled and it's equal with the grip tape. First one that I have to do is the Shanks scar, because then I have to do the eye, and the eye is going to go on top of the scar so that way it doesn't look as awkward. I also want to make sure that the paint underneath is dry. So it's dry right there. So I want it lined up with the edge of the grip. Your paper clip on. And so now that we have the skin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one, Crimson. So this is what I'm going to use for the scar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingers, I'm going to hold it down on the scar so the paint doesn't go underneath the cutout. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it down right here. Hold it down good. Just like that. Then the top part. Just quick, not to, you don't have to go crazy with the paint, just a little bit. So the next one is the eyes. But for the eyes, what I did was I cut out the whole eye. I didn't just cut out. So you can see in the art that you have some black in it, because that's his pupil. That's his pupil. But you don't need to just cut out the white. You could just cut out the whole eye and then just paint over it black and put the eye back in. Put it right on top. And the reason why I did the scar first, let's say the scar, like maybe I cut it a little bit too much on the edges. If I put the white on, it's going to be a lot easier to paint over, and it's still going to look very similar. I'm using, I think, 5/8 nuts, but just if you guys really want something to hold it down, it doesn't have to be 5/8, it could be a lot bigger. This is just like for meticulous art like this, where it's like you have to go over it quickly. I wish I had better white. Just like that, perfect. That's it. So the next one that I have to do is the shadow. Well, I don't have to, I could do the eye next, but I prefer doing the shadow and the eye last. So what I like to do is I like to pick out a color like the skin tone and make a darker one, or try to find a darker skin tone for the shadows. You're not gonna have it perfect for the shadows, but I think it's the best one. I use burnt umber number 6. Let me show you guys. Burnt umber number 6, and you can see that this is the third stencil that I have to use. So I'm gonna use the shadow next, and after that we'll see what's next. Just like that. And the hardest part about doing shadows is when you're doing shadows, it's hard to because there's so many little parts that you have to hold down to make sure that the paint doesn't come underneath the stencil, because this paint is still drying. It's not like it dries quick. Okay, you want to make sure. So with this, because there's so many little parts, like over here where you have to like hold down or with stuff, I don't put a couple of nuts on these, but the thing is, like, you have to make sure you go quick over it and you don't go in one spot, because if you go in one spot you're gonna get screwed. So this color is a little brownish, but I couldn't find another color that best matches a shadow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just like that, that's it. You don't want to touch anything, you don't want to move anything, that's it. That's the shadow. And you just want to leave it a couple minutes so you don't mess up the shadow, because the shadow is like the most important part, because that's what it's going to give you the depth of the art. During this time you can organize yourself, put all your supplies away. And if you're going to be using paper stencils, because this is what I did. I just did cutouts from paper. Make sure that you don't use these like 5-6 times. This is just like a one-time use, maybe twice at the best, but that's it. You don't want to use any more than just whatever it is, because now the paper is going to start getting wrinkled and it's not going to come out at the same time as the first time. So there we go. Now we have the shadows of the art. So here we go. These are the eyes, or the eyes of the color. So we're gonna make this black. Spray paints I use for the skin and whatever into the description below. So that way, if you guys want to decide to do something like this, then you can. But also, when I mentioned that this is a one-time use, it's also like you're also messing up the center line. So you're probably not going to get lined up every single time if you start using them again. So there we go. Centered. You see where the white is, and try to make a copy of it. So this is like the most important part. That's it. So just like a couple times, make sure you got everything. And once you get everything, again, just take off the hex nuts. The eyes, the outline, that's like the most important part, because that's what's going to determine the features of your character. I want to make sure that the stencils from before dry, before I put them back into the plastics. I'm not going to reuse them, but I want to keep a record of the paint that I use for that art, and if I have to cut it out again, I'll cut it out again, doing exactly the same I did before. Doing spray paint, make sure you don't put on new shoes or anything like that, because if you get paint on your shoes, then it's over. You can't wash them off, or you probably can, but it's just going to be very difficult and annoying to do. So just letting you guys know, if you guys want to spray paint, make sure you put on some cheap skate shoes. So let's take this one out. Bang. See, now it looks good just without even putting on the hair, but that's what I have to do now, is I have to put the hair on now. But remember when I was saying you can't use it twice? Look at this piece of paper, it's already starting to wrinkle. So the piece of paper is starting to wrinkle, that's why you can't use this same piece of paper, because now the paint. So for the hair, what I did was I cut out all the red, not the shadows, just the red hair. For the 5th stencil, I'm going to paint it Codium red, deep hue, and then for the 6th stencil, I'm just going to color the shaded part in. So you can see some of the red is here, but the shaded red is not, and that's going to be a different color. That's going to be Cadium red, medium hue 2. So it's going to be a little bit darker. But that's how you want the shadows, because the shadows is what's going to make the depth of the character. And this could be done for any kind of art. You just got to make sure you have all the right colors. You got to know what steps are you going to take. So my camera just died, so I'm just going to film this with iPhone. But so what I was trying to say was, you got to make sure that all the little parts, like over here where the hair is going to be, like where it's flying a little bit, you got to make sure that everything is secured. Like over here, I could see that it's little tapping up, but I got to make sure I spray it from this angle so it doesn't mess up the rest of the art, or it doesn't go underneath the art, because then it's gonna get messed up. So what I'm gonna use is I'm gonna use this one, Cadium red, deep hue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see I messed up a little bit right there. The paint from the can sprayed out, not the way I wanted it. So let me just one more time, and that's it. I'm not doing any more because I feel I'm gonna mess up if I do. After taking out the second to last, you can see that you have the hair. I did mess up a little bit over here, because you can see that the hair is supposed to come down, but it didn't come down. So, but it's something little. And I also messed up over here, as you can see. But again, it's something that most of the time happens. It's not gonna be perfect every time, but you can see that you have the hair, you have the scar, you have the shadows. I actually do like the color of the shadows because it came out the way I wanted it. Shadows in the ear. So we'll see when we come to the last one how it's gonna look. So this is the last layer. I just want the wind to die down a little bit because you can see that it's already flipping over. That I don't want the wind to mess up on the last layer because that's like the most important layer. So I already tested the paint, good. Now we just gotta wait like a couple seconds. All right, right there, perfect, no wind. So I just do this 1, 2, 3. And that should be it. That should be it for the shadow. Just like that, just like that. All right, that's it. So this is the last layer. Let's find out how it came out. So this is the final reveal of how the art looks at the end. So you can see that Shanks from One Piece. You can see the scar. I did mess up a little bit over here, but that's actually the paint that messed up, and a little bit over here, that was my fault. I didn't spray paint from the right angle, but in the end it looks pretty freaking good. And if anyone would like to buy this, I'll definitely sell it to you guys, and we'll see what the next art I'll think of making. But that should be it. I'll see you guys for the next one, and if you guys ever want any requests, just leave it in the comments below of what you want. Peace, guys.